What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 112 of Nintendo Noise, Slip Screen Games Weekly Nintendo Podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. It is a wonderful week on Nintendo Noise this week because, of course, there is a new Mario game, and you are here to talk to me about it. And I'm excited because you spoiled for me that you enjoyed it. So I'm ready to
Yeah.
geek out with you. You're not done with it yet, right? We're both still in the throes of it.
Yeah, I'm not finished with it. I'm probably not gonna be like you and Chewy by the sounds of it. Like we had a chat with Chewy, he's doing everything. Like he's buying all the standees and everything in the shops. I've not bought a single one of those. I don't care about them. He's collecting absolutely
I
everything.
bought one of them and was like, "This is
I'm
silly." Like,
saving my money. Like I'm keeping those flower coins for the good stuff. Like I
yeah,
ain't wasting it on those standees.
no, me
Um
neither. I am trying to like 100% every level as I go. Like I have been doing that.
Some of them have just been so hard that I you can, and I think there are some that I've been to that I actually couldn't without having a badge, like a different badge equipped, which
Hmm.
was quite interesting.
Yeah, that's something that I've been really like pleasantly surprised by is like the way that it plays with difficulty, right? Because I think a lot of the levels, right, are very much I mean, generally speaking, right, like the game has the standard like Mario structure that you'd come to expect, right? Where it's like it's a, left to right level clear type deal. And the base effort of completing any given level is generally not that difficult, right? Like the 1-star levels are easy. Some of the like 4 and 5-star where they deem them like hard, but I think the 1 through 3s are pretty standard difficulty. But
I
like
don't some of those, like, 4 or 5-star badge
some of those
challenges,
are
like, oh
tough,
my
man.
god.
Like, we had some comments here. Uh, Andrew Valentine called out "Jump, Jump, Jump" was enjoyably sweat-inducing. That was one that I'd marked down of, like, that was really tough. That's, like, the rhythm one where, like, you're supposed to be jumping with the beat of the backing track. It, like, introduces it with the wood
I
block.
didn't f I liked that. I
Oh, it
liked
was
the fact that
awesome.
there's, like, a couple of those rhythm levels that I've encountered. I
There's
I
one
think
there's one in the secret world that you said you hadn't been to yet
no,
that
I
I
haven't been to the
I
secret world
literally
yet.
cannot do it yet. Like, I'm gonna have to come back and try it again. It was the first 5-star level that I encountered. I had done a bunch of 4
If you
stars
can do it,
already.
there's zero chance I can. I'm not very good at 2D Mario,
Dude,
and I'm
it
okay.
is
I'm okay to admit. What if you play it as Yoshi? Like, does that
I
make it
mean, the flutter
possible?
jump would make it easier, but there's no enemies, so, like, that's not really the problem. It's like
Oh, okay.
it's precision platforming. Like, the secret world stuff that, like and if you haven't seen or found it yet, it's, not I wouldn't call it a spoiler. It's just like I found it a way to get up to it in World
They
2.
keep telling me about it. They told me I'm in World 4 and they've told me about it. They're just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, above there is some really hard levels."
So,
And I'm just
like,
like, "Okay."
I've done, like, I tried that one specific one, but, yeah, man, they really feel reminiscent of the, really tough levels in Sunshine, where it's like the base difficulty of the rest of the game is here, and then those levels are, like, up here, you know? But yeah, like, I think it's really cool that for, like, the 4-star difficulty ones, or even for, like, the, 1 through 3 ones, you know, there's the added difficulty and, like, replayability of, like, finding the wonder seeds, and then I also think it's cool that even if you do get the regular just completion and you find the wonder seed, there's still other mysteries and little, like, tidbits and things that you may not have experienced that like I replayed a level that I had already 100%ed and I found a different like
There's
pathway.
different routes. Yeah, I did one and it was like you didn't find the right exit. There was like multiple exits on that single level, like
Yeah.
multiple goalposts. And so I had to do the level again. And he was like, "Here, have a one up thing for your troubles." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is quite nice." I think that you mentioned that it's like base, it's a left to right level clear. There's a lot of variety in those levels, though. There are a ton of different categories I would put them into. You've got those challenges that we spoke about, but there's also just some
Yeah, like the badge
puzzles.
challenges, right?
Yeah. there's the badge challenges, there's, like, the knockout rushes that where you are on a timer and you don't get, like, the extra seed unless you do it really, really quickly, where you have to clear, like, 4 screens of enemies really, really quickly, and you've only got 2 special powers, and you can swap between them, but if you lose them, you lose them, you're not gonna get any
Yeah,
more.
I think they're called, like, KO, like, not they're like I have it written down here somewhere. I I was showing this to Steve. I'm like, all my notes are handwritten this time around because I started playing the game while I was in a cabin in the woods. So a bunch of my notes are I kept doing it handwritten so it would be consistent. So I don't have the benefit of control effing when I need to find something, but I'm sure I've got it here somewhere. KO arenas are what
Yes,
they're
AO
called.
arenas, yeah.
Yeah.
They're cool, but then there's also just, like,
That's
standard
what I wrote
levels that
down.
are
I wrote KO
puzzles.
arenas are cool. That's exactly what I wrote.
Yeah, they're so cool. I love those. I think they're really interesting, and every single one's different, and you can tackle them in different ways based on the power-ups it gives you. Like, it might give you the bubble power-up, it might give you the fire one, it might give you the elephant, and you can choose which ones you wanna
Yeah.
take with you, and the flower's
Well,
like,
and
"Oh, you could always take both."
yeah, well, and it seems like as you go, like, you unlock more because like, the last one that I just did, I had the fire flower, the elephant, and the bubble, like, all 3, so I couldn't like, I had to pick 2 and not have
Yeah.
both to switch between, which I thought was cool. Um, but then, like, there's also the ones that are, like, I think they're called break times, and those are, like, really quick, little short ones where it'll be,
They're
like, a
fun.
just one tiny little objective. Yeah,
Yeah, I just did one of those, which was so interesting. It looked like a really simple level, but there was one block, and when you hit the block, it turned the lights out. Like the whole screen went completely black, apart from the Wonder Seed,
okay,
and so you had to turn it off and then remember where the platforms were, and just like blindly platform to that Wonder Seed.
that's cool.
Which was really cool. I liked the fact that they played around with that. And I've done some puzzle ones recently where they play around with perspective, which was I was really surprised by. I thought it was wonderful. I had such yeah, I'm just having such a good time, with the variety of the levels.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I haven't seen that in a Mario game for a long time.
Yeah, I think something that, like, I find kind of interesting is how it feels like it learned some lessons from Odyssey in that way, where it's like, it feels like this game's whole thing is trying to create, like, memorable moments, you know? Like, around and I think that that's, like, both good and bad because I feel like, some of the new ideas really work for me, like, all the stuff that we were just highlighting, I think, like, hits really hard. I think in some of the regular levels, I get this sense a little bit of, like some of it feels, like, gimmicky, and, like, that's not always bad, but, like, I think that this game has a lot of, like, "Oh, this is this level," right? Like, it's like, "This is the gimmick this level." And, you know, it's like, "Oh, this is
Do you have
the"
any examples, like, for examples you feel like were gimmicks?
Sure, like, and I don't even think that that's, like, again, like, inherently a bad thing, but, like, I have a level up on the screen right now, for the YouTube kids. It's one of the earlier ones, so again, you know, we're trying to keep things as spoiler light as possible. But it's the Scram Skedaddlers one, and it's, like, the whole theme on that level is, like, the Skedaddlers are, like, these little, like, you know, weasel guys that, like, throw a projectile at you, and the whole gimmick of this level is that they keep spawning, and it's like and they're throwing a projectile at you as you go by, and, like, that's what you do in that level, and I feel like, there's, like, the buffalo or beefalo, whatever they're called, I can't remember, but, like, the buffalo enemy, right? Like, there's the level where, like, they show up, and the whole thing is that, like, they're constantly charging at you, and how does that you know, and then there's, like, the hippo one, and you need to use them for platforming, and, you know, it's
Yeah, I
like
liked that. I thought that was cool. I really like that. I think it really kind of it presents the enemies the first time in that gimmicky way. But then later on, I think they just get kind of thrown in the mix with everything else, and it's just like,
yeah, and
I know how to deal with this now because I've seen them previously.
I will say it's worth pointing out you're a little further than I am, right? Like you're on world 4, I'm only on world 3. So I think I'm kinda at the point of the game where I think, like, they're starting to play on the stuff that they've already introduced to me a little bit more. So like it's possible that my perception of that is colored by the fact that like I've only done the first and I'm 100%ing them as I go. So like,
Yeah, I'm
I
not doing that. I'm blitzing through. I'm just like, I want to see what the next world theme is like.
yeah. So like, it's possible that that is, part of the reason that I feel that way. But like I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing either, but I think what I've kind of what I was thinking about earlier when I was trying to like get my thoughts together for this conversation is like, obviously the wonder seeds, right, are like kind of like the big gimmick in this game, right? It's like how do those things, change the level? How do they change, the way that you interact with things? Like that is the thing that's the most different
Yeah.
between this and any other Mario game, right? And I think that they range from being like extremely memorable and awesome and like either funny or having like a lot of character or just being like fun to play through. But then some of them I have felt like are maybe a little forgettable.
Tedious, I
Yeah,
think,
or
as well at
tedious
times.
maybe. And I think that is kind of again, it's I don't wanna say my problem, but I think that's the thing I found myself coming back to when I was trying to come up with, like, what are my highlights for the game so far, and I can definitely rattle some off, but, like, I think every level feeling like it needs to be like, "Here's the gimmick," or, "Here's the memorable moment that this level creates," makes, like, I don't know, it does feel so like, "Okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing?" Rather than, like, giving ideas a little more room to breathe, and maybe that is just me needing to get to the 4th world or the 5th world and not being on, like, the 2nd and the 3rd world where they are still introducing new ideas and new concepts,
They
because
still
I have
introduce
started
new
to
stuff, like,
see.
there's stuff in World 4 that seems new to me, and I'm just like, "Oh, okay." But I don't know, the Wonder Seeds, I've never felt they've repeated themselves. I've
No,
never
no,
grown
that's not been a
tired of
problem.
them, and there have been moments where I think there was one in particular where I was just like, "I just can't be bothered with this. It's not worth the effort for me to try that for the 3rd time to try and get that Wonder Seed when I can just buy one from a shop for 100 coins." Like, I only need one more Wonder
That
Seed to unlock the next section, and I'm just gonna leave this one and move on.
That I've not encountered yet, like, I've always felt motivated to go back and get it if I don't get it in my first run, I'm always like, "Oh, like, I missed it? Like, how did I miss it? Where is it?" Like and that's something that, in our Discord, people were talking about, I think it was hmm, I don't know, I forget who it was, somebody in the Discord was talking about oh, here it is, I got the comment, it's from Pilkey, one of our Patreon producers, who said, wow, only just unlocked the first world castle, but done all the levels up to then. So far, so much better than the new Super Mario Brothers. The levels feel so much more creative. So far, one level, a 4-star one that took me 6 or 7 attempts or more, but didn't feel too unfair, just challenging. Some of the ideas are so creative and clever, and I really love not having a time limit. And that was the comment I wanted to highlight there is like the not having a time limit is really different. Like that is a really big change. And it's something that, I don't know, like I wasn't necessarily concernned about it. I kind of had the attitude of like, if they're doing this, I'm sure it's for a reason, right? Like, but I do kind of like how you called out some of the more puzzle based levels, and like that's not something new to Mario, right? We've had those
Even
since.
Mario Worlds had some puzzle
Yeah,
levels on it, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And like that's something that, we talked about last week with Max that a lot of previewers had said that this really feels like a spiritual successor to Mario World and I definitely feel that. I think there's a that influence is kind of all over this game and, that being my favorite Mario, one of my favorite games, I'm definitely like I see that and I'm super here for that.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think the no time limit thing is a kind of a natural extension of that desire to want to encourage people to explore and like you said, like find those hidden pathways and find those alternate routes, you know?
There are some times where there is a time limit though, there's 2. The Wiggler chase
The
races.
races.
Yeah, they're so fun.
Yeah.
And than on some Wonder Seeds, and I think it's on those ones where it's just like it's giving me the stress that there's a counter on the screen, and I've got to pick up more of these pink coins in order to extend the time to be able to reach the seed. That sometimes I'm just like, I just don't want to do that right now, and I will probably come back and do it. I'm sure there's going to be a point in the game where I need more seeds because I'm going to the next level and I've not found the additional seed on that level. But I agree. I mean, I'd completely forgotten that there was a time limit on 2D Mario games, to be honest, because it seems so alien to me that you would have a time limit on these kind of games. Like, I feel like stuff like Celeste kind of made that seem unnecessary, especially with the more puzzle aspect of some of those levels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the Celeste comparison is like I think it does both games a disservice how often people bring up Celeste in relation to Mario because 'cause they're just not the same. Like, it that type of game, it doesn't make sense, I don't think, to have a time limit because it's like screen to screen. Like,
Mhm.
it's not about beating the level, it's about beating the screen and getting to the next checkpoint, right? Whereas
There's a lot more screen to screen in this game than I expected as well at times. There's been times where I've just gone down like just an opening in the floor, and it's taking me to like another screen that I didn't expect to find there, which was really cool. Or
Yeah,
like I've gone
yeah.
into the background of a level, and like I'm running along the background of a level in like parallax, which is so cool.
I do really like that stuff too, yeah. I think that's worked really well for me. Yeah, so I mean, I think when I try to, like, boil down sorry, I think when I try to, like, boil down my thoughts about it, it I think this is really what I needed, you know? I don't think that this game is, like I don't know, it's interesting 'cause I think, on some level, I think a lot of the choices that they made are good and satisfying, but, like, do feel safe to some degree. You know, I think that this game is not a reinvention of 2D Mario by any stretch of the imagination, but, like, it is a much needed refurbishment, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that that is enough ultimately. I think, like, when it comes to, like, the art direction, the sound direction, like, there are a lot of like, big changes in terms of the feel of
Even
Mario.
the way he controls feels different to me to like new Super Mario Brothers U. Like, he doesn't feel as heavy as he did, and maybe that's, like,
Mm.
the badges I've got equipped, or, like, maybe that's the animation, the changes to that, like, there's a really great comparison that John Cartwright did over at Good Vibes Gaming, and I recommend everyone go check it out. Like, some of the old animations that they changed that I didn't even realize that they had been in place since the original Super Mario Brothers, like, the way Mario stands still when he goes up and down a warp pipe. That's completely gone in this game. There's like animation, there's personality. Like when you're in, say, the elephant Mario, he like struggles to get into small gaps and struggles to get down the warp pipe. He needs to like sort of squish himself in order to be able to go down.
Or, like, he,
And
like,
there's
will have to grab his hat when he goes through.
yeah, it's so cool. And like all of that stuff just really makes it feel more alive. I feel like previously, it just felt like they'd taken the original game and they just brought them into 3D, which I guess is what they did. Whereas with Wonder, it just feels like that next step up, like you say, that much needed refurbishment. And you add on stuff like the badges, and I do think some of them are gimmicks, but I think the gimmicks work well. I kind of think it all goes hand in hand with like a good multiplayer experience to just make the best 2D Mario game that they've made. I mean, I'm not as versed with 2D Mario as you, so I'm sure you probably disagree that this is the best 2D Mario, but
Oh,
it's
yeah. I don't think it's even in that conversation at all, you know? I think like I said, I think when it comes to the style of this game, it is in the upper echelon. You know, I definitely agree that, you know, the innovations to animation, the decision to, you know, take even things like familiar sounds like the jump sound, right? Which is like it's changed for the first time really since Super Mario Brothers. And like that's a small change. I think to a general audience, to a diehard fan, it's a big change, you know? But like I think when it comes to, like, the fundamentals, you know, I don't think that the game feel is really very different. I don't think that, there's, like, a real, from the ground up reimagining of Mario here. I think on some level it is more Mario, quote unquote, but I like Mario. So I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't
Were
think that
you
it
hoping for that though? Like, were you hoping for something like a Breath of the Wild overhaul here?
I was I think what I was hoping for was something that I felt more confident arguing it for the best 2D Mario game ever, right? And I think that this game has like thus far been totally delightful and I really enjoy it. I think it will be in my conversation for game of the year. Like up until we got to this point, I'd said pretty much nothing but positive things about it, right? So you know, don't get it twisted. I think the game is the best direction 2D Mario has had like in a long time. You know, I think it clearly has uh a new it has something new to offer and it has a fresh uh you know, kind of coat of paint that does make it feel a little more modern and a little bit, you know, smoother and I think a little bit, you know, um of that kind of perfect balance of inviting for new players but fun for veterans. So that's great, right? But there is to me a sense still of some of the choices being safe and you know we talked when we had Max on last week about the idea that when you look at Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, 3, and World, right? Those games have pretty fundamental differences between each game, you know, and I could spend all day breaking
Do you
down,
think they
right, the
can do
minutia
that
there.
now, though? Like, you can do that with Zelda because Link's kind of not set in stone, but Mario's Mario, he's always gonna look like that. They've got the movies. He's beyond the games at this point. Whereas with Zelda, I feel like they can refresh it and kind of revitalize it and rejuvenate
I
it.
don't think that that argument holds water for me because you look at Odyssey. Like Odyssey is a game where like for 50% of the time Mario doesn't look like Mario because he's a
Mhm.
T-Rex or a frog or a Goomba or whatever. And that was something that I think on its face seemed weird and then it wasn't, you know? And that's fine. Like that's something that Mario is super malleable. He's one of those characters like, you know, weirdly enough, like somebody like Spider-Man or Batman or something like that, Sherlock Holmes, where it's like you can kind of put him in any situation and it makes sense. Like Mario can be
Yeah,
a
he's
cowboy
racing now
or
all
a
of a sudden.
spaceman
Great.
or whatever, right? Like that it just plays. And I think, you know, this game is really bold in its in its changes to things like sound and art and animation and even like small things like world order and stuff like that, right? Like World 2 is, you know, like that being like that puffy pink cloud world is so different than any other Mario environment where like historically you've had that kind of like okay, there's the like green area, there's the underground area, there's the desert area, there's the ice area, like,
I miss
you
the underground music, though. I haven't heard that once yet.
not yet. I'm sure it'll happen at some
It's my
point.
fa I bet it's in World 5 because I know what World 5 is, and I bet it's in there.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. But, like,
Yeah.
that restraint is something I appreciate, right? Like, I think those are where the game really succeeds for me, right? Is it being more willing to take those bold risks. And what I think I want to see in, you know, maybe a potential sequel or in whatever is next for 2D Mario is that same level of, you know, curiosity and creativity applying to gameplay because I don't think that it's a thing that's not doable. I don't think it's like in 2023 how do you do that, right? I think there's you know so many examples of like games that have come in and brought a new, you know, edge to the platformer, and, like, Mario's done that itself, right? Like,
Well, I think
bringing
Bowser's
Yoshi
Fury
into, like,
was a
Super
big
Mario
one.
World, right, was a huge deviation from the classic formula. Giving Mario the ability to fly in 3 was a huge deviation from the formula. 2 being, like, so orient there's 4 characters that play their own ways, and there's puzzles, and there's secrets, and all those games have, like, little different changes and innovations over time, and, like, they all have their own personality and style as a result, and I wanna see, more of that innovation come in on the gameplay side of things and not just in the style and personality and music, because I think when you're talking about that stuff, so far this game has done nothing but succeed there. But I
Mhm.
think in its effort to give every level or every, wonder seed, whatever, like everything that its own moment, nothing to me feels as special as something like the jump up superstar moment in Odyssey so far, right? Or like,
And
you
that was
know,
pretty far in though, like, I don't know how I mean, maybe that comes in, like, World 5, World 6, maybe
yeah,
that comes at the end of the game, and
maybe
that's,
so.
like it ties everything together, and you're like, "Oh, I kinda get it all now."
I guess my question is though, because every level has been like, here's the thing in it, like, is that gonna feel as special when it happens? Because the whole point of this game is like breaking down the formula and doing these like weird little one-off things. And like, I think that that's cool. I'm not trying to criticize that idea inherently, but I feel like because like something like the perspective shift level, right? Like that happens because that's only going to happen once, or maybe it'll happen again and there'll be another level that does that same gimmick. I kind of doubt it though. I feel like every wonder is going to only happen like once, maybe. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's some repetitions on a theme, right? Like, I feel like I've seen the warp pipes, like, turn into a snake a couple of times,
okay, sure,
but there's,
but like,
like it seems to be a one-time thing. I did just have one that I feel like I'm probably gonna see again, and when you get to it in World 4, I think you'll understand why.
okay, but like, I,
And it
I
was
guess,
really unexpected.
I guess to put a pin in this point, right, or put a period on that point, when you have like everything being a gimmick, like, there's not as much time to develop those individual ideas, and it's like, I don't know, it's funny because like, that was one of my concerns with Odyssey, where it's like, how is it gonna possibly feel good to play as all these different iterations of Mario
And it did, right? But there were a lot of gimmicks in that as well, like
and a lot.
the Easter Island headstones with the
Yeah,
glasses that you could only see invisible stones when you're wearing those, and you kind of
yeah,
have to swap
and
back and forth.
not all of them were as, good as they were not all equal for sure, right? Some
Yeah,
felt better than
stacking the
others.
Goombas was fun though, like, I loved
Sure.
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. Like I think it's I like what Wonder is, but I think what Wonder is makes it that having the kind of gameplay innovation that I'm looking for on like a core level doesn't really make sense. Cuz it doesn't make sense to like inject a new element to the formula if the whole point of this game is that every level you're going to do something new that you might only do one time. Right? It's like it feels like almost like a theme park or like a carnival where it's like,
Yeah,
what's the
I think a
next
theme park's the
thing,
perfect thing because
you know?
each of the worlds is so specifically themed as well, and then all the
Yeah.
levels in that are iterations on that theme, and then the enemies in those worlds are used in specific ways because they're only in that world seemingly, they're not in the other worlds, like, I can't remember what they called them, but they're like mummies, and you can, like, unravel them now in World 4, um, and I only figured out you can unravel them a while in. I was throwing fire at them and they catch on fire because 'cause they're mummies. Um, I wanted to go back though and touch on a point you made because you mentioned, I think it was in Mario 3 where they added, or maybe it was Mario 2 where they added the multiple characters where they all play in different ways. That's gone now,
Right.
and every single character plays the same. How do you feel about that? I know they've brought some of those mechanics back with the badges. Like I think, for example, Peach, right? She used to float down.
Yeah.
You can do that with a badge. You take your cap off and you kind of float down instead.
So I don't know. I'm kind of two minds with it. I think that to me is a good example of like I used the word safe earlier, right? When it comes to some of the innovations here, and that to me feels like a safe decision to be like, well, if every character plays the same, it minimizes the number of like variables we have to deal with, right? And I think that's kind of a bummer because this game's whole thing being like weirdness and there being replay value and like things for you to discover and wanting to encourage exploration and experimentation. Imagine how much more you could do if each character had a little more nuance to them, right? Or if like the power-ups worked slightly differently for each character or something like that,
Mhm. I
And
mean,
those
that even
are
happened in 3D World, like, there were levels where you had to be a specific character to hit a specific switch to get into
right.
a specific area, and I do kind of miss that. I kind of I was at the beginning playing as Mario, then I swapped to just do the randomized thing every time I boot it up, and now I'm just like, "Oh, they all play the same, I'm just gonna be Toadette every single time 'cause she's my favorite character anyway, so I
And
might as
like
well."
I I can kinda see both sides of that, where, like, I think it is cool that if you just wanna play as the character you like the best, that you're not penalized for that, and you can just play the way you wanna play, and that's probably a good thing, especially with the intent of it being a multiplayer game for certain people, right? Like, they want people to be able to play with a team of 4, and it is better if, like, the youngest sibling isn't getting stuck with a character they don't wanna play that plays a weird way, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it minimizes variables not only for the developer, but for the player in a way that, like, streamlines things and, you
Yeah, they're
know
kinda just like cosmetic costumes now on a generic character
yeah,
in a way.
which, I don't know.
I think I'm fine with it, but I
I am
initially
fine
had an
with it.
issue with it, but the badges I really like. The problem I find is once I found one I like, I kinda just stick with it. I don't know if you've got it yet. I bought the one that adds extra blocks to a level, adds exclamation mark
Yeah,
blocks
yeah,
to the
yeah.
level. I use that all the time. It's just always on. I can never bother to change it. Like,
I
sometimes I'm
like the
just like,
vertical jump,
"That
like
one's
the
pretty
wall
good."
jump
Yeah.
one, because
I'm
like,
just
there's a lot of secrets you discover with that and
Yeah,
I
but
like that.
sometimes, like, the hidden block one, the extra block one will just give me platforms up to that secret anyway, so I don't need
That's
to do a
actually a
wall
thing
jump.
that's another thing from Super Mario World.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the beginning of Super Mario World, you have to go to you start here, right? And you have to go to the right to start going through World
Mhm.
1-1, but if you go to the left, there's like, World 1-0 level that you can play, and then you can go up and push a button, and it'll put the exclamation points, like, everywhere in the
Oh,
game.
nice, that's so cool. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I
It's
like
kinda
that,
like a
that's one.
baked in, like, easy mode thing.
Okay, the next time I play Mario World, I'm gonna go put easy mode on because it definitely does make it easier. Sometimes, though, it does get in the way, and I think they do that intentionally. It's like,
Yeah,
these blocks I
a little
can't really
both.
jump now because it's sort of, like, in the way. It's, like, penalizing me for trying to make the level more easy. But for the
And
most
like you
part,
said,
it was
sometimes
good.
it is like a secret or something else that like is like, "Oh, that's cool." Like it adds a little like you can climb up and go above to this other screen you wouldn't have seen and stuff
Mhm.
like that that really again, it encourages replayability and encourages experimentation, which, that's I think that one of the things that this game does the best aside from just having a really just strong sense of style and aesthetic and art direction, right? Like, I love how much you were talking about the animations earlier. Like, I love how much like little things there are where it's like when you do the ground pound, it's like a little drum roll and like a cymbal crash. And then like there's the little like comic book explosion when you hit the ground, or like when you get the power up and like the mushroom like animation, it does like a little kind of like comic booky explosion. Like there's like a real like uh textural quality to a lot of the animation that I really like.
Yeah, I think it's great, and Toadette, she's just so charming. She says "toodles" at the end of the levels sometimes. She just makes me smile every time. She's my favorite Mario character, and I'm glad I get to play her. I always like playing her in Mario Party, and then they remove her, and then they add her back, and then they remove her, and then they add her back, so I'm glad that she's here as a playable character. Every single
Yeah,
time
it's
I would do the randomize, it would give me a blue toad, and I'm like, "I don't want a blue toad, like, why do you keep giving me the same blue toad every time?"
yeah, it is cool that they brought her up to the majors for this one too. I was happy for your sake on that one. And, yeah, I
You've
mean,
just been playing as Mario? I don't think we've spoken about it on
yeah,
mic, but
I've just been playing as Mario just because, like, it feels like for, like, the first playthrough, like, it just kinda feels appropriate, and, like, I think for me, the fact that they made every character play the same, it's like, well, they all play like Mario now, so I might
yeah,
as well
there's
just
no
play.
incentive to play anyone else now.
Yeah, where it's like Luigi, like I always liked because it's like, oh, like he has like the
Jumps a bit
flutter
higher.
jump, or he's got
Yeah.
like he's a little, he's a little slower, but he jumps higher, like things like that. It's like okay, cool,
I
like
always liked Peach because it was like a get out of jail free card. If you accidentally miss a jump, you could float on down a
sure,
little bit.
yeah. So like, I with that in mind, I think it's kind of just encouraged me to stick with Mario for now, and I'll probably switch around at some point, but I usually stick to Mario or Luigi anyway.
And how are you
Um,
liking the new voice? Have you even paid any attention to it? Is it just, like,
yeah.
in the background?
I mean, I think it's really good. Yeah, like I think it's one of those things where there are some moments where I don't think I would notice it if I didn't know that it was different, and then there are some times where I definitely notice that it's different, but it's not bad. It still sounds like Mario. It's like um I don't know, it kinda reminds me of, like, the way that, like, Mickey Mouse's voice has changed over the years,
Mhm.
but it's like but, you know what he sounds like, right? It's like,
Yeah.
whether it's, like, the original one where it's more like the, or it's like, like, the way it is now, it's like, whatever, right? Like, you still get it, and, like, I think that's what's important. It still feels like Mario and Luigi, so,
Yeah,
like,
it's
good
not an
enough.
Aunt Viv situation in Fresh Prince where all of a sudden it's just
Fantastic
something
pull. It is
different.
not an Aunt Viv situation. It does not feel like they just, totally changed the character as well as the actor.
Yeah, which was just bizarre. Like, don't know why they would do that, but I'm curious. I know you mentioned this is your game of the year, a possible game of the year contender for you. Where does this sit in line with ranking of other 2D Mario games? I think I can guess that this is below all of the SNES era games and older. But what about the new Super Mario Brothers universe era? Does this beat all of those out for you?
Um, I don't know. I think I have to finish it before I can properly weigh in on that. But I think I think those games get a lot of flack when like they're largely pretty good games. I think the Wii U is like a particularly really good game. So like I don't know. I think I like
It's
this.
probably dated now though, right? It's 11 years old.
Yeah. So what though, right? Like
No, I know, but that's like that
Super Mario
that's the
Brothers
thing.
is
I
made in
think
1985. It's dated, but it's still
fair
good.
fair point. I kind of feel like 3D dates a little bit more than pixel graphics, but
Yeah,
I think
but
even the play style probably is not as fresh as what people would be expecting if they played
no, I
a
don't agree. I
2.5D
don't agree.
platformer now.
I think that is an opinion that is shaped by popular opinion about those games and not how they actually play.
Mhm.
I think that like there's really really good level design in those games and a lot of like really really solid um execution on what 2D Mario is. And I think, it's cool to like take shots at it now, but I made the point last week that like the new Super Mario Bros, like the original one on DS, like more or less single-handedly brought back 2D platformers as a genre. That's not just because it had the Mario name on it. It's because it's a good game and it's fun to play. So like I think knowing me and like how my tastes play out, I think that the like style and art direction of this game are things that will definitely push it over for me and push it towards the upper echelon of games. Um but I don't know. I don't know that it's going to beat out every one of the new Super Mario Brothers games. I think I might have to uh, after beating this, go back and play the ones I haven't played in a while
Mhm.
because it's been quite some time since I replayed uh, the original or the 3DS one or
The
even
Wii
the
U
the
one.
Wii one. Yeah. So, you know, I think for my money, the I being about a third of the way through the game, right? So grain of salt. I think for my money right now, I like the overall style of this more, to the point where I think I will end up liking it better than those games overall, even if there are, maybe gameplay moments or executions or things like that that I might point to some of those games and give them a leg up in those
Mhm.
categories. I do think that even with like the 3D aging, even if it looked perfect and pristine, right? I don't think that you know, uh, art style has a fraction of the personality that Wonder
No,
has.
it doesn't. No,
And
it's the animation as well. Like the animation is just it's not on the same level. It's nowhere near. And that seems to be the consensus. Metacritic is scoring at a 93 at the moment. Every other new Super Mario Brothers game is below that. The lowest ranked new Super Mario Brothers game is Super Mario Brothers 2 on 3DS. That's a 78.
that would have
Everything
been
else
my
is in the
guess.
80s.
I would have ranked that one the lowest, I think.
What do you think's the highest new Super Mario Brothers game other than Wonder? Oh, I guess that's not a new Super Mario
It's
Brothers
not.
game.
Yeah, that's its own
Yeah.
thing. I would guess it's probably, I don't know actually. I think I can make an argument for any of the 3 that are left because the first one's the first one, so I would imagine it reviewed really well. I remember being very popular, but that doesn't necessarily mean it reviewed super well. Wii U, I think, is actually probably the best game, but I would imagine that it reviewed middlingly because it's the 4th game in that franchise, and at that point, I think there's the fatigue has set in. So I
So,
feel like that's
what
held against it. So
you're
I'm
pretty
gonna
much on the money, yeah.
okay,
You
so
are
let me
pretty
let
much
me
on
let
the
me
money.
guess then. So that is you the 3rd lowest?
Yes, deluxe, I'm gonna discount because that's lower, but yes, you
Okay,
is the
what
3rd
is
lowest.
it?
It's 84.
Okay. So then is it Wii 2 and then the original's number
No,
1?
no, no, 2 is the lowest. So 2
No,
is
no,
the
no,
lowest at
sorry, sorry.
78.
Is New Super Mario Bros. Wii the number 2?
Oh, yes. Yes, it is. Yeah,
Okay, and then
it's
number 1 is the
87,
original.
and then the original is 89.
Yeah. And I mean, this one's 93. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So,
I
because like,
and
that's the thing, right? Is like,
the only other comparison we've got is Super Mario Advance 4, which is Super Mario Brothers 3,
okay,
because that's
that's
the only other one that was on this list because it's Metacritic and they don't have old games. And that's a 94. So that beats out Wonder by 1 point.
yeah, I don't know. I think that this game has more depth to it creatively, and I appreciate that. I think that on the other hand of that though, I think the new Super Mario Brothers games being not as artistically motivated, like they had to have really tight gameplay and level
Do
design.
you think your issue then is that this isn't core what you consider Mario 2D gameplay, and that they're adding in too much, they're stacking too much on top of what you would consider to be like a pure Mario experience?
I I don't even know that I think that they're stacking too much on, but I think that because the whole point of this game is stacking things on, that it feels less pure, and I do think that that makes it lesser in my eyes overall than it would be if it was less gimmick oriented. It almost reminds me of like how we talk about like Pokemon, where I'm like, do we need another gimmick? Like, does it just do we need a gimmick every time, every generation? And it's like,
Mm.
uh, so, but like in the same breath, New Super Mario Bros. Didn't do that, and that was something that we're criticizing it for.
Yeah.
So it's like,
And Tears of the Kingdom arguably added gimmicks to Breath of the Wild to make that game better.
yeah, but like I think that's actually a great example of what I'm talking about, though. What I like about Tears of the Kingdom, and I guess to a lesser extent Odyssey, because I don't think it's quite as well executed, I like that the gimmick is like a holistic gameplay system. Like, I like that
It
it's like
is the mechanic, it's the
it's Breath of
gameplay
the
mechanic,
Wild, but
yeah.
also there's building, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, like that is a fundamental change that influences the entire way you interact with the game, right? Because it's not only, oh, I can fuse weapons and I can build weird contraptions and like that
Well, and
fundamentally
it changed the weapon durability system entirely
totally,
because of that.
right? Like it fundamentally changes the way you interact with every other system in the game, whether it's combat, exploration, whatever. That to me is a meaningful innovation
You'd say
versus
that's
like,
more of a mechanic than a gimmick?
and it's like you can argue that it's a gimmick, but like it's one really core gimmick. And I think that's better than being like, this is the level where you go upside down. This is the level where the piranhas plants sing. This is the one where this at, it's like there's I don't dislike any of those things moment to moment. Most of them I like. They're making me smile. I think the game is super fun. It has a ton of personality, but it's like because it's just a million like little vignettes, I think when I look back on the game, there's going to be that sense of like what do I remember? Because it's like just a lot of little shit, whereas like
Mhm.
in Odyssey, yes, there's a lot of gimmicks, right? And there's a lot of like, you're a Goomba now, you're a T-Rex, you're this, you're that. But like the core thing is Cappy, right? And like that it it, it feels like you're iterating on an idea again and again and again and trying to find its natural conclusion. Whereas like the Wonder Seeds as an idea are not firm enough, right? Because it's not like, do you get what I mean? Like, it's like it's not like it changes the same thing every time, right? It's like sometimes it just makes the level weird, and sometimes it's
Yeah,
like you go an alternate
but
path.
I
And
have that annoyance about some other mechanics in Mario, and I don't think other people share my annoyance. Like, why can I go down some warp pipes but not others? That's always frustrated me. It's
well,
the
no,
same
that's
thing
mystery.
used in different ways.
If you can do it in every single one, then it's not special.
Yeah, I totally get that, but for me, it's just like, "Oh, I've gotta try these things, and maybe I get bit
Well,
by a
yeah,
piranha
like
plant."
that's the thing of it,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's the same reason that like not every bush has a secret under it in Zelda, right? But so that it's like when you find one that does, you're like, oh shit, like cool,
Mhm.
like this is a bespoke world,
And I
and
go
it
around
makes the world
smashing
feel
everyone's
lived in.
pots in Ocarina of Time and find those rupees, and some of them, they've got none in them.
Yeah, but like that's the thing, right? It's like you have that sense of like discovery and aha, and like this is a world that was crafted for me to explore, and I like
And
that
I
about
do
it.
feel like the worlds are crafted. I do feel like
No,
every
no, no.
level feels unique and crafted.
I don't want to. I'm not insinuating that they're not. They really are. We were talking before about like the depth of each level and how like even if you have the Wonder Seed and you get the proper clear, you probably haven't seen everything a level has to offer. Like that's a huge achievement, and I don't mean to undersell that at all. Like I think that that's one of the coolest things about it. I think it's more like the Wonder Seeds being the core thing I think gets in the way of it having that kind of core gameplay innovation that I'm talking about, right? Like, and that's not inherently a bad thing. It's just I think that's to me what keeps it from standing out in terms of like gameplay, right? Because I think when you ask me to like boil down like what is special about this game, it is more to do with the atmosphere that it creates and like the like I said, the style and the execution and the vibe and the music and the changes to the sound design and like those things are all great and awesome and like very very cool. But when you ask me what is special about Mario 1, 2, 3, and 4, everything that I had to say was about gameplay and like this game has this innovation or this change or this one plays different than that one in this way and like I
Do you not feel like the innovations that they've brought here are enough? So we've brought in the overworld from 3D World, where you can kind of move around freely and have a look. And when you get past World 3, you're going to be able to choose which order you do the worlds in. You can do 4 before 5, or you can do 5 before 4. You can kind of pick and choose, which is a new innovation. You've not been able to do that
yeah.
before, as far as I'm aware.
Well, unless you were taking advantage of warp pipes and stuff, which
Hmm.
is a thing you been able to do since, I mean, 1, but, like, in World, that's something you can do. You can sequence break the map by, like, beating levels in different ways or going down specific pipes or using power-ups in specific ways, and, this game, like I said, right, like, it definitely the
It
overworld
feels like that, yeah.
especially, it takes so much influence from Super Mario World, which is awesome, you know? You know, you have to twist my arm to say that it's awesome that they learned from my favorite game.
Mhm. And then you've got the badges, the shop, and the multiplayer experience. Like, I feel like this is probably the first new Mario game with multiplayer. I don't think you had online multiplayer, um, at launch.
I don't
I know World did when it came to Switch, and Deluxe might have added it, but I don't know about you
I'll look it up.
having
I
online
don't you might
multiplayer.
be right.
'Cause I distinctly remember bubbling up with Sierra and AJ 'cause,
Yes, of
that was
course.
not a good experience. But even the standees, right? They're a new innovation. Being able to put them in places and seeing other people's standees in the world reminds me a lot of, Elden Ring and Souls games where you can just put messages down and they'll just randomly show up in your game at some point.
Yeah, totally has that element. Okay, it does I think it looks like it's just local multiplayer. Yeah.
So that's good that you can finally play these games online with people.
Yeah, and, like, I think, like you said, like, having the standees and everything is, like, a cool way to do it too, where it's there's, like, that community-oriented way to play, if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, I
Um,
not once ever thought about playing this game multiplayer. I hate multiplayer Mario.
to me, it's, like, just a totally different experience, right? It's like how I feel
It's
about,
how can
like
I piss off the other people I'm playing
yeah,
with is
yeah.
the experience, yeah.
It's like to me, it's like the difference between, like, like, if I get, like, Domino's, it's not because I want pizza, right? Like, it's like, it's not really pizza, but it's kind of its own thing. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I think where I ultimately land with it, right, is, like, the game in terms of, like, style and all that stuff is exactly what I've been missing. Like, it has so much personality, and it's, like, my number 1 ask for 2D Mario has been answered. So I'm a happy camper, right? Also, I think that this game has established a very strong new foundation to build from, and I hope that whether it's a sequel, whether it's whatever the new, colon Mario game is, that the next step is to try and now, build on the formula in ways that feel a little bit more, uh, I don't know, like foundational.
Yeah.
And, like, play with the formula a little bit more and not just, like I feel like this game is so about, like, blowing the formula up that I want something that has a little more restraint, you know?
I kind of feel like it was needed though. I do feel like
Sure.
that franchise had become stagnant, and to have something like this
Definitely.
where it just comes in and it's like, "We're throwing everything at it. We're gonna make you smile every single time you play this game." Because I always end up smiling when I'm playing this game, and every single level is different, and there's been frustrating moments, but for the most part, I've had a really good time with it. I think the badges are a good innovation. I
They're
think
really
it
good.
kind
I
of
like them so
levels the
much more
playing
than I
field.
thought I would.
Yeah, and it is nice to be able to swap them out, and if you are really bad at a section or level, they'll be like, "Hey, you should try this one," which is, like, the one that will either, bring you back up and give you a bounce back up or give you, like, a super mushroom at the beginning. It's like,
I like
recommended.
I really like how some of them, like, fundamentally change the way you play too. Like, we were talking about, like, the badge challenges. It's wall climb jump 2, I wrote down. That's, like, one of my favorite levels so far, because, like, it is a I'm gonna sneeze, excuse me, hold on. Oh, excuse me. It is such a different type of platforming than what you normally do in a Mario game, like having like the totally vertical. It's not something you've never done before, but like it being like, okay, like there's these moving, like, spinning platforms, and you need to jump off and then kick off to get on top, and, like, just the way that you need to use rotation and momentum to kinda, like,
Mhm.
move up, it feels like something like, almost inspired by Celeste, and I've seen a few levels like that where, like, there is that or, like, oh, what's that other game? It'll come to me probably.
Doodle Jump. It's Doodle Jump, basically.
Sure. Uh, I dig that. Like, I dig them finding ways to like, see, like, that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, having a level where it's like, instead of going left to right, you're going up to down to up is
Yeah.
like, that's different. That's fundamentally different. And, like, that I don't need that to be the whole game, but, like, I like those kind of innovations and toying with the things more than, like, run on the back of the buffaloes for 30 seconds, It's like, that stuff's fun, but it's fun in, like, a zany way and not a, like, "Oh, like, this is challenging my conceptions," or, like, delighting
That's
me.
why I really love the puzzle levels because they feel
Yes.
like a challenge in a different way. And you look at them and it's like this is a 3 or 4-star level, and you're like, "Oh, okay, it's gonna be really challenging platforming." And you go into it and it's like basic platforming, but the puzzles are so hard at times to figure out and fathom what you've gotta do. I like that. I'm a big environmental puzzle fan, and it's nice to have something like that in a Mario game. I have one type of level I absolutely despise though, which are the park levels where it's like, "Bring your friends and come and find all the hidden seeds," or whatever, and I'm just like, I don't wanna be just jumping around randomly looking for hidden blocks in order to find a wonder seed. That's
Ooh, I
probably the some of
mean,
the levels I dislike the most.
I've only done, like, 2 of those, so I can't like, maybe they get more annoying, but I actually kinda like those a lot because, um
Which ones have you done? Have you done the waterfall one?
yeah,
Yeah, I figured that would be those would be the 2 you've done. I
and the
could
cloud
not
one.
for the life of me find the last block in that waterfall level. It was driving me mental. I had to watch a YouTube video to figure out how to do it. I was
So,
like, "Fuck,
like,
it's over there."
so I don't know. I get that. That is like it's very old school, and this like I don't know, like just jump around and look for shit. But like to me, that's one of the fun things of like the not having the time limits and like being a little more like Metroidvania with it. Of like I don't know, like you want to find it. And it's like like if you're frustrated and you can't find it, the game's answer is like come back. You don't need to do this right now. You got enough wonder seeds. It's fine. Come back or
Mhm.
don't do it at
But
all.
bring some
Whatever.
friends, yeah. Or yeah, or don't do it at all, which I probably will end up doing on some of the future ones.
Yeah. It empowers you to do that, And I like, we talked about its approach to difficulty. Like, I love that. I love that it's not like a play on easy mode, right? It's like you can if you want to. There's like the play as, Yoshi or the Nabbits, and that is like easy mode. But like if you want to inject your own level of difficulty of like, I kind of just want like a more casual experience, then cool. Just level clear. You don't even need to do the Wonder Seed stuff if you don't want to, right? Like that's totally optional.
You do miss out on those experiences though, and I do think they are worth it, going after most of the
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah, you'd be insane not to, but point being, you don't have to, right?
Yeah.
Like I think you could probably make it through many checkpoints of the game and only engage in some of the Wonder Seed content cuz I always have like twice as many seeds as I need to get to the next checkpoint,
Yeah, oh yeah, me too. And you can just buy them in the shop if you've got enough of the purple coins anyway.
You only get like one from each shop though.
There's one shop I've been to, there's 3 for sale, and they get progressively more expensive.
Cuz they you got to earn them, Steve.
Yeah. I guess they've been busy going to get them themselves from all these courses.
But yeah, I think yeah, I really love the game. I'm having a good time with it, and if any of the stuff that I've said has come off as like negative or nitpicky, it's because I really care about 2D Mario and I like it a lot.
Mm.
So I am gonna
Plus,
be
honestly, Max isn't here, but he can't say that it's got no creativity after this game. There's just no way. You can't make a comment
please,
like that
yeah,
after
get
Wonder.
out of here. That's why I kicked him off this week. He's out. I spanked his butt right off this episode. Just you and me today.
He's gonna come back. It's a 4 out of 10, you know?
Please. Oh my God. And we're gonna get to the end of the year, and I'm gonna be trying to get the games I like to the top of the game of the year list, and he's gonna be colluding with you, and it's gonna be like, I don't know, Cocoon was
Oh,
pretty
come on.
good.
I stand no chance of my any of my games making it to game of the year. Like, they're games I've tried to get you to play, and you just haven't, so they're just not gonna get there.
I played Starfield. That's your game of the year, isn't it? That's gonna be easy to get me to vote with you
It's
for.
on there. It's on there, yeah. To be honest, it's probably gonna be Tears of the Kingdom, let's be honest, you know?
All right, man.
We're on the
That's what I
Nintendo
want to hear.
podcast. It's
That's what
Tears
I
of the
want to.
Kingdom
That's what
or
I want to
Mario
fucking
Wonder.
hear. Yeah, he's back. All right.
Yeah. What about Pikmin, though? Like, where's that going? Is that shunted straight off the list
No,
now?
no, no, no. It's still on the list. I mean, that's the, like it's a banger of a year, my man. Like that's the reality. But I mean, I think the three big Nintendo games this year are all on my short list. I think all of
Well,
them
what
will
about Metroid
be.
Prime? Because that's, like, the second highest rated game of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to get around to that one. There's no time to be playing old games this year, you know? No
Does
disrespect.
that come in does that come into contention because it's a remaster? I don't think it does. Whereas Dead Space or Resident Evil 4, they're in contention because 'cause they're remakes.
That's tough because they call it a remaster, but they did some remake shit there. Like
They
there's
did, but is Jeff adding that to the list? I don't think he is. I don't think that makes it to the Game Awards, even though it's the number 4 highest rated game of the year.
yeah.
I mean, The Witcher 3, you could just take that out of the list because that doesn't really
For
belong
me, I'd cut all of them. You know, I'd be like, we don't need to put any of these on the list this year, is the
there.
reality.
Mhm.
Whether or not they're eligible, there are enough good original games that I would not consider any of these games. Because if you look at it with, like, if you look at the list on Metacritic right now, Mario Wonder is technically the seventh game. But if you cut all the games that are remakes or whatever, it's the third game. So
Yeah. I think a lot of people would be upset to hear Metroid Prime Remastered cut, though. I think Max included there.
I mean, but come on, like I'm happy to advocate for remakes and remasters being on the list when they make sense to be on the list. But
Yeah.
like, you can't sit here and tell me that Metroid Prime Remastered is one of the best games this year. Like one of the games we need to be considering for Game of the Year when in a year that has Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate and Mario Wonder and Spider Man 2 and Diablo 4 and Sea of Stars and it's just like, come on, dude. Like, we just that's I think you're doing a disservice to the new games that came out this year and had something to say by being like, obsessive about honoring like the past,
Yeah.
you
No,
know?
I agree. You know, just like, yeah. Otherwise, Age of Empires 2, the console edition, would be making it onto my list, but I can't have Age of Empires 2 as a game of the year in 2023. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's like, don't get me wrong, like I put Mass Effect on my list. That one, it's like you put old games on your list, like it happens. I'm not gonna begrudge
Mhm.
anybody putting it on their personal list, but
Yeah,
I
yeah, I've got, Hitman's making it on my personal list this year for a new
sure,
game mode they added.
right. So it's like to me though, that's a different thing. Being like, I'm putting this on my top 10 games of the year versus like Jeff Keighley's Game Awards being like, yeah, Metroid Prime Remaster over Mario, right? Or whatever, right? Is like, come on. You'd
Probably a
rather
topic
see.
for Flip Screen at some point, but I'd love to, like, there's gotta get to a point where there's gotta be a specific category for remasters or remakes because they're
I
just
think we just
becoming
add it
so
to our show.
commonplace.
I think for our we should because we always just do game of the year, right? We should add categories and we'll do game of the year, we'll do best remake, remaster. We we
Best
can
ongoing game, best
yeah.
flip screen, host, we'll add that one in.
Best flip screen host. That's the fan award. We'll let the fans vote on that one.
And Sierra wins every year.
That's fine. I'd be good with that. I would be fine losing to Sierra. If I lose to you or Max, though, I'll never hear the
Wow,
end of it.
okay.
I don't have a problem with it, but you probably not so much. You're like you pick your battles. Max will never ever if he wins, he'll
Mhm.
never let us
Yeah,
hear the end of
he's
that.
coming on the show, he wants to talk about bad sausage every week, you know?
Yeah, the people have spoken. It's what they want, the buttered sausage content. Oh man. So yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about this game in the weeks to come. I'm sure it'll be on our short list for game of the year at the end of the year. But
Yeah.
we'll have more from the crew next week. I think Max will be on next week to talk about it. I think we're gonna get Sierra and Chewy on in a couple weeks to talk about it as well. So you'll hear a lot more Mario Wonder talk in the next couple weeks. But any final thoughts before we close it out, Steve?
I think for me, after last week's show, right, I was cold on 2D Mario with Max, and I wasn't sure if I was going to pick the game up. I'm
Then you
glad
realize I was right.
I'm glad I did because I think this is one of my favorite Mario games. It probably goes hand in hand with Odyssey. Definitely beats stuff like Sunshine out of it's not even close. The amount of care and attention that's gone into every single level, the amount of fun I'm having with it. It's a really, really nice experience, a really great package. I don't have any of that baggage and history with 2D Mario that you have. So for me, I look at this as like face value and not really comparing it to the other 2D Mario games.
Yeah, it's easy for you
And
to come in with, like, fresh eyes on it, which is great.
yeah, and I can just come in and be like, this is great. I'm having a good time. And I don't need to think about, oh, well, Mario 3 did this better or World did this better or this comes from there. And I think sometimes it's good to come in with a fresh pair of eyes.
Totally. Yeah, and, like, I'm trying to be that voice in this conversation as the person who is, like, the 2D guy on the show and the
Mhm.
person who does have that history, so, like, I'm sure I came off more negative than I even intend to because, like
Yeah, like, I genuinely thought you were gonna come in and be like, "Oh, this is the best 3D Mario game, like, I love this, this is wonderful."
and, like, I really fuck with it, like, heavy, right? Like, if I was putting this on a 10-point scale, right? Like it'd be a 9. If I was putting it on a 5-point scale, I'd say it was like a 4 or 4.5, whatever. Like this is a great game. But when you're comparing yourself to, in my opinion, some of the best games of all time, like I have to apply that level of scrutiny. And again, who's to say when I roll credits on it, I might come back and be like, Steve, I don't know what I was talking about. 5 out of,
Mm.
like it's perfect, right? Like that I might get there. But for me
Have you
right
what like,
now,
I think there's a few other franchises I know of that you feel like this about. One of them is definitely Pokemon. I don't think anything any game in the Pokemon franchise has come close since the Game Boy era for you in capturing that
Gen 4,
essence of yeah,
DS, the DS gen is like the I think
the
perfect.
last good Pokemon.
Good is, I think Arceus is good. I think that's a really good game. But it's
Yeah, I
like,
don't know if we're ever gonna get another one.
who knows, right? Like it's totally yeah. But yeah, I mean to me, I think that's probably the apex of that franchise is Gen 4. Yeah. That's a long time ago, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's the
It's
thing,
like
right? Is like with Super
20
Mario
almost 20
Brothers,
years.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, not quite, but
It's like oh 04, oh 05 era, right? Oh 05, oh 06 maybe?
yeah,
So you're
yeah,
looking at,
that's
like,
right.
17 years old, you know?
Yeah, I was a teenager when it came
Yeah. People born then are driving now.
out. Yeah. I look, I remember, one of my high school teacher's kids played the game, and that kid is now, like, a taxpayer. So, like,
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
so yeah, for sure. Um, so yeah, but I think with Mario, and again, like, I think that's why I'm, like, applying so much scrutiny to it now is, like, I think the worst 2D Mario game is still probably, like, an 8 out of 10. It's still better than
Oh,
most
yeah,
other
it's like what
video
people
games.
say about pizza, bad pizza's still
Yeah.
pizza, you're still gonna have it.
So, it's like I think if I think most people will probably align with you and say that this is like a 5 out of 5. This is this is and I think a lot of those people have also probably like you and Max fallen off the last couple of games,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
like,
are
I was dead in on 3D Mario. The Galaxy and Odyssey are some of my favorite games, but 2D Mario, I was just like, "Ugh, I'm kinda done with that."
well, I'm glad you're on the right side of history again, Steve. Good to have you aboard.
Yeah, well, we should change these lights from red to blue, right? You said we were on the dark side with these red.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a Nintendo. and Mario, he's red.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're not Sith. Should we go blue?
Maybe green for Luigi.
That would have been good. We were Xbox green on flip screen this
Oh
last
god.
week, so you
Okay.
gotta
Yeah.
switch it up.
This was the problem. People don't know this is why we went yellow for flip screen because it was like we can't be red because that's Nintendo. We can't be blue because that's PlayStation. We can't be green because that's Xbox. Is anyone yellow? No. Okay, we'll be
Nice
yellow.
neutral color. All right. So we're going to wrap the show up here for the day. But before we do that, let me remind you that this episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of October. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valens, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Sobi, Pilkey, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You're all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. And I appreciate your understanding that I'm doing this plug at the end of the show instead of the middle. We never took a break. The Mario conversation could not be stopped. But if you want to go and show your support just like those folks did, or if you want to go check out some of our sister shows and catch our Xbox conversation, or go check out, any of the other cool stuff that we're doing here, or on any of the other places we are all over the web, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to our Patreon. You will find links to our Discord or our email address where you can keep the conversation rolling between episodes. You will find, I think I said, I don't know. I got Mario on the brain. I'm going to leave and go play some more video games. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Nintendo Noise. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week. Stay wonderful.